He slaps his pregnant wife so hard that the entire gala freezes in horror. But the real shock is this. Someone in the crowd is filming the moment that will tear apart his perfect life. From that single strike, everything he built begins to collapse. The guests turn. The cameras catch every second. The truth spreads like wildfire. His wife fights back. Her sister unleashes the evidence. The board abandons him, and the law closes in fast. What follows is a brutal showdown of power, exposure, and justice catching up to a man who thought he was untouchable. You will not be ready for the ending. Drop a comment below so we can talk about it. The chandeliers of the Royal Madrid ballroom glittered like frozen lightning, pouring gold across hundreds of polished glasses and sequined gowns. Laughter rippled through the crowd, bright and effortless, rising above the soft music of the orchestra. Tonight was supposed to be a celebration. 10 years of Herrera Group, 10 years of power, 10 years of Daniel Herrera, the CEO who built an empire so quickly that newspapers called him the Golden King of Madrid. No one, not even the guests who adored him, had the slightest idea that before the night ended, everything he built would begin to crumble. Elena stood beside him in a pearl-white satin gown, her left hand resting gently on the curve of her 5-month pregnant belly. The dress shimmered with each breath she took, but her eyes held a quiet tension she could no longer hide. She had spent years perfecting silence. Tonight, that silence began to crack. The smell of orange blossom drifted through the air. The orchestra played a graceful waltz. Servants in crisp uniforms glided between the tables with trays of champagne. Every detail had been designed to reflect prestige and power. Daniel thrived in this kind of environment. He fed off admiration the same way others needed air. He leaned down to Elena with a flawless smile that fooled everyone but her. "When they call us to the stage, you will join me," he murmured. His smile never moved, but the pressure in his voice tightened like a fist. Elena inhaled slowly. "Daniel, the doctor said I should not stand for too long. I feel a little dizzy tonight." "Do not start this," he whispered, still smiling for the cameras across the room. "You always do this. You always ruin important things." "I am not trying to ruin anything," she said softly. "I just need to sit." His jaw twitched. "You will stand beside me because people are watching. Do not embarrass me." The stage assistant approached. "Sir, your speech begins in 2 minutes." Daniel straightened his tuxedo and gave a confident nod. The assistant disappeared behind the curtains. Elena felt him squeezing her arm, not enough to bruise, just enough to remind her who he thought he was. She pulled her arm back slightly. "Please let me stay seated, for the baby." Daniel's eyes hardened. "You are coming." Her heart gave a small, painful thump. She stepped away from him. "Daniel, stop. You are hurting me." His smile vanished, and the room, still buzzing with polite conversation, drifted into a moment of suspended breath. Elena saw it before it happened, the small jerk in his shoulder, the flash of anger crossing his eyes. But she was too slow, too shocked, too tired of being afraid. His hand struck her cheek so violently that the sound tore through the ballroom like a gunshot. The orchestra stopped instantly. Gasps erupted. A waiter dropped an entire tray of champagne glasses that shattered across the marble floor. Some guests froze. Others clutched their chests. A few covered their mouths as if witnessing something forbidden. Elena stumbled sideways, her hand flying to her face. The sting spread through her cheek like fire. She grabbed the back of a chair before she collapsed. Her other hand clutched her stomach. "Protect the baby! Protect the baby!" Her breath came sharp and trembling. Daniel blinked once, realizing too late that silence had swallowed the entire ballroom. He raised his hands as if calming a crowd. "Everyone, please. She is fine. She is pregnant and emotional. She lost her balance. That is all." But his voice shook. And it was too late. Because at the back of the ballroom, a red light glowed on a camera. It blinked rhythmically, cold and unforgiving. The woman behind it lowered her lens and stepped forward with deliberate calm. Lucía Herrera, Elena's older sister, one of Spain's most feared investigative photographers, a woman who had exposed corrupt politicians, corporate crimes, and scandals powerful families tried to bury. She had not told Elena she would attend. She wanted to observe quietly. But quiet was no longer an option. She walked toward them. Her black jumpsuit moved like liquid shadow. Her heels echoed sharply across the marble. Every step intensified the tension until the entire ballroom leaned toward her without realizing it. Daniel frowned. "Who are you? This is a private matter." Lucia looked at him the way a storm looks at a coastline, calm only because destruction had not begun yet. "A private matter? Is that what you call hitting your pregnant wife in front of an entire ballroom of witnesses?" Several guests murmured. Someone whispered, "She recorded everything." Another said, "That was not an accident." Daniel stepped closer, fury returning to his voice. "I will have security remove you. You have no idea who you are talking to." Lucia tilted her head. "Actually, Daniel, you are the one who has no idea." She reached Elena first. Her hands were steady as she cupped her sister's shoulders. "Are you hurt? Look at me." Elena lifted her eyes. Tears clung to her lashes, but something else flickered beneath them. Something that had been buried for years. Something rising. Daniel pointed at them with a trembling hand. "Stop this. Stop filming. All of you. This will not be used against me." But it already was. Every phone in the room was raised. Every guest had seen his hand strike Elena. Every pair of eyes reflected judgment he could not control. Daniel moved forward again, trying to grab Elena's wrist. "You are coming with me now." Elena stepped back. Her heart pounded. Her cheek throbbed. Something inside her spine straightened like a blade being pulled from its sheath. "No," she said. Just one word. But the power in her voice cut through the ballroom like lightning. Daniel froze. "What did you say?" Elena exhaled, lifting her chin. "I said no. I am not leaving with you. You will not touch me again." Lucia stood beside her like a solid wall. She is not alone anymore. Daniel's face twisted in disbelief. "Elena, sit down. You are humiliating me." "No," Elena said again. "You did that all by yourself." A collective breath spread through the room. The kind of breath people take when they witness a moment they will never forget. Daniel's jaw dropped open. For the first time in his life, he looked small. Lucia raised her camera in front of him. The red light blinked mercilessly. "Everything you did is on this card, and every witness here saw it with their own eyes." Daniel stepped back. His fingers trembled. His empire, built on control and fear, felt suddenly fragile. Elena touched her cheek, feeling the heat of the slap. Yet within that pain, something new pulsed. Strength, clarity, freedom. For the first time in years, she felt the air fill her lungs completely. Lucia wrapped an arm around her sister. "You are safe now, I promise." And as the guests murmured and security moved in, the chandeliers above glittered brighter, as if the gold in the room had shifted sides. The empire had begun to fall, and the woman he tried to silence had finally begun to rise. The ballroom erupted into chaos long before anyone realized the evening was officially ruined. What had moments ago been a celebration overflowing with luxury and admiration had quickly twisted into something colder, darker, and infinitely more dangerous. The chandeliers still glowed, but their golden light now felt sharp, as if the crystals themselves were judging Daniel Herrera. Elena stood with Lucia's arm around her, her cheek throbbing, her breath uneven but steadying. Daniel hovered several feet away, trapped in a strange limbo between rage and disbelief. He could not comprehend that the perfect facade he had crafted for a decade was unraveling in front of hundreds of witnesses. His lips parted as if to speak, but no sound came out. His control, once absolute, was slipping through his fingers like dust. The murmurs in the ballroom grew louder. "Did you see how hard he hit her?" one woman whispered. "I heard it from across the room," a man replied. "He actually hit a pregnant woman. No, he assaulted her. This is criminal." Daniel finally snapped. "Everyone calm down," he shouted, his voice trembling with fury. "Stop filming! I said stop filming!" He reached toward a guest's phone, but the man jerked it away. Several people instinctively stepped back from Daniel as if he had become contagious. Security guards hesitated near the entrance, unsure whether they should intervene or not. After all, Daniel was the CEO. But the cameras, the crowd, the witnesses, everything felt unstable. Elena pressed a hand to her belly as a wave of dizziness washed over her. She inhaled deeply and whispered, "I need to sit down." Lucia immediately guided her to a nearby chair, her movements sharp and protective. Daniel followed, ignoring the stares around him. "Elena, stop this," he demanded. "You are exaggerating. You are embarrassing yourself." Lucia turned to him, fury radiating from her voice. "She is not exaggerating. You hit her. You hit a pregnant woman in public, and then you tried to lie about it." Daniel glared at her. "You do not speak for us. This is my wife." Elena's voice trembled. "I am not your possession." Lucia knelt beside her sister. "Elena, does your stomach hurt? Are you cramping?" Her voice softened, shifting from rage to fear. "Tell me the truth. Are you feeling anything unusual?" Elena shook her head, though her breath was still shallow. "Just shaken. I am scared. But the baby is fine, I think." The assistant, who had previously been preparing the stage, hesitated before approaching them. "Ma'am, I can call a medic if you need one. The hotel has medical staff on standby." "Yes, call them," Lucia said sharply before Elena could protest. "She needs to be checked." Daniel stepped between them and the assistant. "No, she does not need a medic. She is fine. She is just emotional." Something snapped inside Lucia. Her voice rose with a force that made even the security guards flinch. "You do not get to decide that. You have done enough tonight." The assistant backed away and hurried toward the staff exit to find medical help. More guests gathered around, some offering jackets, some offering water, others simply watching with faces full of shock and pity. The empire builder had become the villain in the span of a few minutes. A familiar voice suddenly broke through the crowd. "Step away from her, Daniel." It was Javier Ortiz, one of the company's senior board members, a man nearly as powerful as Daniel himself. The room shifted as people whispered his name. Javier had a reputation for being cautious and politically sharp. If he was speaking publicly, the situation was worse than Daniel realized. Daniel forced a smile. "Javier, this is not what it looks like." Javier lifted an eyebrow. "It looks like you slapped your pregnant wife in front of 100 witnesses. And it looks like her sister recorded it." Daniel's face paled. "This is a misunderstanding." "Then I am sure the footage will clear everything up," Javier replied calmly. "Security, make sure that camera is not touched, and notify the legal department that we have a situation." Daniel spun toward Lucia. "Give me the camera, now!" Lucia rose to her feet, positioning herself directly between Daniel and Elena. "Touch this camera, and I will have the entire ballroom testify against you. You laid a hand on her once tonight. You will not do it again. Not ever." The crowd murmured with approval. Even the security guards shifted closer to Lucia's side, sensing where the truth lay. Daniel reached out again, but two guards stepped in front of him. "Sir, please calm down," one of them said awkwardly. "We need you to remain at a distance." Daniel stared at the guards, stunned that they dared to speak to him like that. "Do you know who I am?" Lucia answered before they could. "Yes, a man who just broadcast the end of his own empire." In the next moment, the medical team arrived with a small kit. They knelt beside Elena, checking her blood pressure and asking about her breathing. Elena answered quietly, grateful for their presence. One of the medics frowned slightly. "Her blood pressure is elevated from stress. She needs to be monitored. We recommend going to the hospital." Elena nodded. "Yes, please, I want to go." Daniel started to protest again, but the medic held up a hand. "Sir, this is medical protocol. She needs care immediately." The hotel manager stepped forward next, his expression tight with anxiety. "Mr. Herrera, we must ask you to comply. Otherwise, we may need to escort you out for safety reasons." Daniel stared at him, speechless. He had never heard those words in his life, not directed at him. "Lucia," Elena whispered, her voice fragile. "Please come with me." Lucia squeezed her hand. "Always." As the medics prepared a small wheelchair, someone in the crowd yelled, "He belongs in handcuffs!" The tension spiked sharply. Another added, "I am posting my video right now." Another said, "This is going to explode online." Daniel's eyes darted around the room as the realization hit him. He was losing control, losing dignity, losing everything. His empire was not bleeding quietly. It was hemorrhaging. And his wife, the woman he had spent years silencing, was the one walking away with her head held higher than it had been in years. Elena let the medics help her into the wheelchair. The crowd parted around her as if she were a queen instead of a victim. Lucia walked beside her, still gripping the camera like a weapon forged from truth. Daniel reached out one last time. "Elena, wait." She did not look back. Not once. And the Golden Ballroom of Madrid, once a symbol of Daniel's power, watched silently as the woman he tried to break became the first piece of his empire to rise without him. The flashing lights of incoming alerts lit up Daniel Herrera's phone even before the ballroom doors fully closed behind Elena's wheelchair. The moment she disappeared from the hall, escorted by medics and surrounded by murmuring guests, the empire he had spent a decade polishing began to shake. Daniel stood in the center of the ballroom, chest rising and falling sharply as dozens of eyes bore into him. His mind raced as he tried desperately to regain control, to rewrite the story already slipping beyond his reach. He smoothed his tuxedo jacket and forced a stiff smile. "Everyone, please return to enjoying the evening. There has been a misunderstanding." No one moved. Conversations did not resume. Champagne remained untouched. Every guest stood frozen, waiting for whatever lie he would attempt next. Daniel raised his voice. "My wife is emotional. She lost her balance. Anyone claiming otherwise is exaggerating." A guest near the front, a woman in a sapphire gown, spoke up without fear. "We saw everything, Daniel." Another added, "Do not insult our intelligence." Daniel's smile cracked. "You are misinterpreting what you saw. Elena has been under stress. You know how pregnancy is. She becomes overwhelmed easily." Javier Ortiz, the board member who had confronted him earlier, stepped closer. "Daniel, stop talking before you dig a deeper hole." His voice was calm but carried a finality that made several people inhale sharply. Daniel clenched his jaw. "I do not need your advice. I need everyone here to understand that tonight was a private matter." Javier folded his arms. "Nothing is private when it happens in a ballroom filled with partners and shareholders. This is not going away." The weight of the room pressed in tighter. Daniel felt sweat forming under his collar. He scanned the faces around him, searching for even one expression of support, but all he found were narrowed eyes and cold disbelief. "My wife has been unstable lately," Daniel continued, grabbing at any excuse. "She becomes dramatic over small things. You all know how pregnancy affects emotions." Lucia, who had remained at the doorway watching him crumble, stepped forward with the camera still in her hand. The red power light glimmered faintly, reminding him that every second of this disaster was preserved forever. Her voice sliced through the tension. "Do not blame her. She did nothing wrong. She defended herself, something she has not been allowed to do in years." Daniel's eyes darkened. "You are manipulating the narrative." Lucia lifted the camera slightly. "The camera does not manipulate anything. It captures the truth. And this time, you cannot hide behind your money or your title." A ripple of agreement coursed through the crowd. Daniel felt his stomach twist. He pointed at Lucia. "You think you can ruin me with a video? I will sue you. I will sue everyone posting these lies." Javier spoke again more firmly. "Daniel, enough. Look around you. Half the room has footage. The other half has witnesses. Do you plan to sue the entire city?" Daniel opened his mouth, but no words came out. The humiliation seeped into his bones. He could feel control slipping away piece by piece, and it terrified him in a way no business threat ever had. A young man from the media team stepped cautiously forward. "Mr. Herrera, the communications department is asking for immediate instructions. 3 major news outlets are requesting comments. The incident is spreading online." Daniel swallowed hard. "What incident?" "The one where you struck your wife," the man said gently, as if speaking to someone dangerously unstable. "People are calling it assault." "That is absurd," Daniel snapped. "I barely touched her." Lucia walked until she was only a few feet from him. "Barely touched her? Daniel, her cheek is red. She could have fallen. She is carrying a child." "She is exaggerating," Daniel spat. The crowd gasped. Lucia's eyes burned. "You left a mark on her face. You terrified her, and the whole world is about to see exactly what you did." "He is finished," someone whispered. Daniel heard it and felt rage claw up his throat. "No," Daniel said sharply. "You think a video will end me? I control this company. I control the narrative. I control everything." "That used to be true," Javier replied. "Not anymore." The lights in the ballroom flickered as if echoing the shift of power. Daniel looked at Javier, realizing too late that the man who once supported him now stood firmly on the opposite side. Daniel pointed at him, trembling with anger. "You are turning on me." "I am protecting the company," Javier said. "What you did tonight is indefensible. The board will meet first thing tomorrow." Daniel staggered back a step. "You cannot do that." "We can." Javier replied quietly. And we will. It felt like a trap door opened beneath Daniel's feet. For the first time in his life, he understood what it felt like to be powerless. He turned back to Lucia, desperation consuming him. Give me the camera. I will pay you whatever you want. Lucia's expression hardened. There is nothing you can give me that is worth more than Elena's safety. Daniel's voice dropped to a low, dangerous growl. You will regret this. Lucia stepped closer, inches from his face. I already regret not coming sooner. A hush fell across the ballroom. What had once been a celebration now stood as the crime scene of a man's downfall. Daniel felt the walls closing in, the stares sharpening, the murmurs growing. His empire was slipping through his hands, not because of corporate betrayal or financial ruin, but because he had attacked the one person who had once loved him unconditionally, and now that act was exploding across Madrid. For the first time that night, Daniel Herrera understood that this might not be just a scandal. It might be the beginning of the end. The siren of the hotel's private elevator hummed softly as the medics guided Elena inside. Lucia stayed glued to her sister's side, one hand gripping Elena's trembling fingers, the other still clutched around the camera that held the truth. The doors closed slowly, sealing them away from the poisoned glitter of the ballroom, and the man who had tried to rewrite reality. For a brief moment, the small elevator became unbearably quiet. Elena's breathing echoed in the narrow space. Her cheek throbbed with each heartbeat, and fear pulsed low in her stomach, tightening her grip on Lucia's wrist. I am okay, Elena whispered, though her voice carried none of its former conviction. I just want to make sure the baby is all right. Lucia bent closer. The baby is fine. You are strong. The medics said your blood pressure was high because of stress. We are going straight to the hospital. Elena nodded, but her eyes glistened with the kind of pain she no longer knew how to hide. I did not want tonight to go like this. Lucia exhaled sharply. Elena, he hit you. In front of everyone. Tonight did not go wrong because of you. It went wrong because of him. The elevator stopped. The doors slid open. The hotel's private garage felt cool and dim compared to the blazing ballroom. A black transport car waited with its back door open. The medics helped Elena inside with gentle efficiency. Lucia climbed in after her and shut the door. The moment the car pulled away, Elena's facade cracked again. What happens now? Elena whispered. What if he tries to come to the hospital? Lucia rested a hand on her knee. He will not. And even if he does, I will be there. The security will be there, and the law will be there. Elena swallowed. He will say I fell, or that I misunderstood. He always has a version. Lucia held up the camera slightly. This is our version. This is the truth, and it cannot be erased. The car drove through the glowing Madrid streets, slipping past late-night cafes and blinking traffic lights. Elena stared out the window, her fingers brushing her cheek where the imprint of Daniel's hand still burned. He used to be so gentle, she murmured, before the company grew. Before the cameras began to love him more than I did. Lucia starred forward. Power did not change him. It exposed him. Elena closed her eyes, letting the words sink into the rising ache in her chest. She felt the baby kick softly, reminding her that she was not alone and that her choices mattered now more than ever. The hospital appeared ahead, bright and sterile under the night sky. Medics rushed Elena through the sliding doors, past the scent of antiseptic and hurried footsteps. A nurse led them directly to a private examination room. Please lie back, she said gently. We will check the fetal heartbeat, your blood pressure, and any potential trauma. Elena lowered herself onto the bed. Lucia stood near the head of the bed, refusing to let go of the camera, refusing to let go of Elena. The nurse attached sensors to Elena's belly. Moments later, a soft, rhythmic sound filled the room. The heartbeat, strong, steady, alive. Elena felt tears slide across her temples. Lucia's shoulders dropped with relief. The nurse smiled. Your baby sounds healthy. Stress can cause temporary tightening in the abdomen, but there are no signs of immediate danger. We will monitor you for a few hours to be safe. Thank you, Elena whispered, her voice breaking. They remained silent for a moment, letting the steady heartbeat fill the air like a fragile melody. Then a knock sounded at the door. Lucia stiffened instantly. Her fingers tightened around the camera body like a reflex she had trained for in darker situations. The door opened slowly. A uniformed police officer stepped inside, His expression was calm, professional, but heavy with purpose. "Mrs. Herrera," he said gently, "I am Officer Ramos. We received multiple calls from the hotel. We were told you may have been assaulted." Elena's breath caught. Lucia moved to stand slightly in front of her sister but remained respectful. "Yes," Lucia said quietly. "She was attacked." Ramos nodded once. "I will need a brief statement. You are under medical care, so we can keep this short. But what happened tonight was witnessed by many people, and we have already received video evidence." Elena trembled. Is Daniel?" "He has not been detained yet," the officer replied. "But given the severity of the reports and the fact that you are pregnant, this case qualifies as potential domestic violence under Spanish law. You are entitled to immediate protection." Lucia inhaled sharply. "We want a restraining order, tonight." "You will have one," Ramos confirmed. "But first, I need to confirm your safety and gather any evidence you are willing to provide." Lucia lifted the camera. "It is all here." Ramos accepted the camera carefully. "This will be submitted with chain of custody protocol. I promise it will not disappear." Elena's voice wavered as she spoke. "He hit me. I told him I could not stand because of the baby, and he hit me." The officer nodded slowly. "I am sorry this happened to you, but you are safe now, and the law will proceed." Lucia touched her sister's hand. "You do not have to be afraid anymore." Elena took a shuddering breath. "I am not afraid for me anymore. I am afraid of what he will do when he realizes he cannot control the story." Officer Ramos lowered his notebook. "Then it is even more important that you stay here tonight under protection. A security detail will monitor the hallway. No one who is not authorized will be allowed near your room." Elena nodded. Relief and dread tangled in her chest like two threads pulling in opposite directions. As the officer left, Lucia turned back to Elena. "Listen to me. The worst part is over. The truth is out. You survived tonight. The baby survived. And Daniel cannot touch you again." Elena closed her eyes, letting the truth settle. She did not feel victorious. Not yet. But she felt something else rising within her. Something small and raw and unfamiliar. Strength. The empire had begun to bleed the moment Daniel raised his hand. But in this white hospital room, lit by soft monitors and the heartbeat of her child, Elena felt the beating of a new beginning, and she realized that, for the first time in years, she was not breaking, she was awakening. Daniel Herrera had always believed he controlled every narrative, every headline, every whisper, every opinion the public formed about him. For 10 years, his empire had been built on image. Polished suits, perfect speeches, carefully curated photos that showed him as the charismatic visionary of Madrid, a man untouchable, a man admired, a man feared. But at 3:17 in the morning, while the city slept, his world caught fire. It started with a single post, a blurry video uploaded by a guest still traumatized from the ballroom incident. The caption read, "CEO Daniel Herrera hits his pregnant wife during company gala." Within minutes, the video was reposted by another guest with a clearer angle. Then another. Then someone uploaded Lucia's first still shot of the slap, crisp and undeniable. The image traveled like lightning. By the time Daniel's exhausted body collapsed onto his expensive leather couch, the world had already begun to tear apart his reputation. He stared at his phone as a flood of notifications exploded across the screen. Mentions, messages, missed calls, hashtags multiplying by the second. The first hashtag climbed into trending position within an hour. Herrera assault. Then another, justice for Elena. Then a third one, colder and sharper. End the Herrera empire. Daniel tapped one of the videos. The sound of the slap echoed through his penthouse speakers. He watched himself raise his hand. He watched Elena stumble. He watched the room gasp. He watched Lucia's camera flash. It played again and again in a loop he could not escape. Tears stung his eyes, not from remorse but from the horror of losing control. He threw the phone across the room. It hit the marble floor with a violent crack. "This is wrong!" he shouted to no one. "They are twisting it! They are twisting everything!" But the truth was simple. No one had twisted anything. The camera had not blinked, and the world had watched. Across Madrid, in a small private hospital room, Elena lay awake. She had not slept, not even for a moment. The soft glow of the monitor lit the room with a calm she did not feel. Her hand rested gently on her stomach. listening to the steady rhythm of her baby's heartbeat. Lucia slept in a chair nearby, her head resting against the wall, still holding the camera like a lifeline. Elena picked up her phone and hesitated. It buzzed constantly. Messages from friends, from coworkers, from people she barely remembered. Most of them said the same thing. "We are so sorry." Some said, "We had no idea." Others wrote, "We are proud of you for standing up." She scrolled through the endless tide of posts, her name everywhere, her face in every article. She felt exposed, vulnerable, overwhelmed by the noise. But beneath the fear, something warm stirred inside her. She was not invisible anymore. People believed her. People finally saw. Meanwhile, across town, Daniel sat in darkness, watching his empire fall apart in real time. 10,000 shares dropped in the first hour, Javier Ortiz said coldly over a speakerphone. "Shareholders are furious. They want an emergency meeting at noon." Daniel felt his throat tighten. "We can spin this. Tell them it is a misunderstanding." Javier's reply was sharp. "A misunderstanding does not trend at #1 nationwide. A misunderstanding does not have 4 angles of video footage and 100 witnesses." Daniel gripped the edge of his desk. "She is my wife. I can still fix this." "You cannot fix this," Javier answered. "You struck a pregnant woman. In public. During a company event. The board wants you suspended by morning. If you resist, they will remove you entirely." Daniel felt a violent rage pulse through him. "You are betraying me." "No," Javier replied. "You betrayed us the moment you put your hands on her." The call cut off. Daniel stood alone, breathing hard, his reflection staring back from the massive glass windows. He barely recognized the man looking back at him. His empire had always felt solid, indestructible, but now it trembled like glass waiting for the final blow. At 4:42 a.m., a breaking news notification lit up every major screen in Spain. New footage released of Herrera assault. The clip played side by side with legal commentary. Domestic violence experts, psychologists, lawyers, people dissecting every second of the event. At 5:15, the national morning program aired an interview with one of the guests from the ballroom. She described the sound of the slap, the shock on Elena's face, the panic in the room. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she spoke. At 5:30, the hospital received a call from the police, informing them that the judge on duty approved an emergency restraining order against Daniel Herrera, effective immediately. Lucia woke to the sound of the phone ringing. Her eyes snapped open. She answered quickly, then turned to Elena. "It is official. He cannot come within 500 meters of you, or the baby." Elena exhaled, her shoulders shaking with relief. For the first time in a long time, it felt like she could breathe without looking over her shoulder. Lucia moved closer and brushed a hand through Elena's hair. "People are on your side. They see you, they hear you, they believe you." Elena nodded softly. "I never thought the world would care." Lucia smiled gently. "The world cares because you stood up, and because the truth is impossible to ignore now." Elena watched the heart monitor. The numbers blinked steadily, like tiny promises of a safer tomorrow. Across Madrid, Daniel Herrera opened another video. Another angle, another witness, another headline ripping through his remaining defenses. For the first time in his life, he understood what it meant to be powerless. And as dawn rose over the city, washing the sky in pale gold, 2 things had become undeniably clear. The world had chosen its side, and the empire he thought would last forever had begun to crumble faster than he could breathe. The hospital room was quiet except for the steady rhythm of the fetal monitor. The soft beeping filled the air like a fragile heartbeat of hope. Elena lay on her side, one hand resting over her belly, her breathing finally slow enough to calm the rise and fall of the numbers on the screen. The early morning light spilled through the blinds in narrow golden stripes, brushing against her skin like a reassurance she desperately needed. Lucia sat in the chair beside her, camera in her lap, eyes sharp even through exhaustion. She had not slept, not even for a second. Every muscle in her body stayed alert, ready to shield Elena from any threat, real or imagined. A gentle knock sounded. The door opened, and a doctor entered. His white coat swayed slightly as he approached the bed. His voice was calm, professional, exactly what Elena hoped to hear in the middle of a storm. "Mrs. Herrera, I am Dr. Morales. I am here to review your tests and check on the baby again." Elena nodded quietly. Lucia rose from her chair but did not step away. Dr. Morales reviewed the monitor first. The baby's heartbeat is stable, strong. There is no sign of internal trauma or immediate danger. You will need rest and monitoring over the next 24 hours, but physically, your child is safe. Elena exhaled a breath she did not realize she had been holding. Tears filled her eyes. Relief washed over her shoulders like warm water. "Thank you," she whispered. Dr. Morales continued, his tone shifting with gentle seriousness. "Now we must address the other part of your condition. I have examined the bruise forming along your cheekbone. It aligns with a forceful strike by an open hand. The redness and swelling are consistent with physical assault. I will include this in your medical report." Elena's breath caught. Hearing it labeled so directly made everything feel disturbingly real. Lucia's jaw tightened. "Please include every detail. She needs that documentation." "I will," the doctor replied. "Spanish law requires that any medical professional who treats injuries from suspected domestic violence must file a formal report. I have already notified the attending social worker and law enforcement. This incident cannot be dismissed." Elena closed her eyes. "He will be furious." Dr. Morales spoke gently. "His reaction does not change your rights. You and your baby must be protected." Before Elena could respond, another knock sounded. Officer Ramos entered again, holding a stack of documents. His expression was steady but carried gravity. "Mrs. Herrera, I returned with the official paperwork. Based on the videos, eyewitness statements, medical evidence, and your condition, the judge has approved a protective order." Elena swallowed hard. "What does it mean exactly?" Ramos pulled a chair closer so he could speak at eye level. "The protective order states that Daniel Herrera must remain at least 500 meters away from you and the hospital at all times. He cannot call, message, or attempt to reach you through any third party. If he does, he can be arrested immediately." Lucia nodded firmly. "Good. That is what she needs." Ramos continued. "The police have already sent officers to his building. He has been informed of the order. He will not be allowed near this hospital." Elena's hands trembled slightly. "What happens next?" "We will take your full statement today," Ramos said. "You can choose to do it now or after more rest. There is no pressure, but the sooner it is recorded, the sooner the charges move forward." Lucia squeezed her sister's hand. "You do not have to be strong every second. Just tell him when you are ready." Elena took a slow breath. "I can do it now," Ramos nodded. "All right." He opened his notebook. "Please describe the events of last night from your perspective." Elena's voice cracked at first, but grew steadier as she spoke. She told him everything. The argument, the pressure, the moment Daniel grabbed her wrist, the rising fear, the slap that echoed louder in her memory than in the ballroom. She described the shock in the crowd, the sting on her cheek, the way she instinctively held her stomach to protect her child. As she spoke, tears slid down her face, but not from weakness. They came from the release of years of fear finally being spoken aloud. Ramos listened carefully, writing every detail. When she finished, he closed his notebook slowly. "Mrs. Herrera, based on everything you described and the evidence collected, this is officially classified as a case of domestic violence. Charges will proceed. You have done the right thing." Elena wiped her cheeks with trembling fingers. "It still hurts to say it out loud." Lucia wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "Painful truth is still truth, and it is the only thing that can free you." The doctor returned briefly to schedule another fetal check. 2 nurses adjusted Elena's blankets and dimmed the lights. The room softened again, filled with warmth and quiet. Officer Ramos stood to leave. "There will be a police officer outside your door for the next 24 hours. If you need anything, alert the nurse." Elena nodded. "Thank you for protecting us." "You deserve to be safe," he said, and then stepped out. As the door closed, Lucia shifted her chair closer. Elena reached for her hand. "For the first time in years," Elena whispered, "I feel like someone is finally standing up for me." Lucia smiled gently, brushing a strand of hair from her sister's forehead. "Not someone. Everyone who saw what he did. And now the law, too." Elena looked toward the monitor, where the heartbeat pulsed softly across the screen. It felt like a promise, a reminder that she was not alone, a reminder that she had a future waiting beyond fear. She closed her eyes, letting the sound anchor her. Tonight, she had been broken open, but in that breaking, something stronger had begun to form, and the report filed in this hospital room had sealed the first chapter of Daniel Herrera's downfall. Morning sunlight pressed through the hospital blinds, painting thin stripes across the walls of Elena's private room. The world outside was awake, buzzing, furious, electrified by the story that had exploded overnight. But inside the room, a different kind of storm was forming. One that carried memories Elena had tried to bury so deeply, she almost convinced herself they were gone. Lucia returned with 2 coffees, and a look on her face that warned Elena the peace would not last. "I need to tell you something," Lucia said as she handed Elena the warm cup. "It is about Daniel, and it is not about last night." Elena set the cup down slowly. Her pulse picked up. "What now?" Lucia pulled a chair close. "When the video went viral, women started reaching out to me. Strangers, people who said they knew him, people who said they saw things." Elena's stomach tightened. "Saw things?" "Patterns," Lucia whispered. "Red flags he has shown for years, not just with you." A cold chill crawled up Elena's spine. She stared at her sister, searching her eyes for certainty. "Tell me." Lucia took out her phone. "I want you to see this." She opened a message thread. The first voice note came from a woman Elena had never seen. Her tone was shaken, honest, painful. "I used to work for Herrera Group," the woman said. "He cornered me during a conference meeting. He never hit me, but he threatened my job when I refused to accompany him to dinner. I reported it, but the complaint disappeared. I thought I did something wrong. I am so sorry for what he did to you." Elena's breath trembled. Another message followed. A young voice, timid but brave. "I interned at the company 3 years ago. He yelled at me until I cried because I spilled coffee. After that, I avoided him every day. I thought it was normal. Now I see it never was." Lucia watched Elena silently. The truth settled like a stone between them, but the worst was the third message. This time, the woman's voice cracked with fear. "I lived across from your apartment. I heard him shouting at you one night. Then something heavy hit the wall. I called security, but he answered the door and told them everything was fine. I wanted to help you, but I did not know how. I am so sorry." Elena's eyes filled with tears she did not want to acknowledge. She blinked slowly, each word of the message slicing open memories she had tried so desperately to silence. She remembered the night Daniel slammed the bedroom door, so hard the mirror cracked. She remembered the sound of something breaking. She remembered how he grabbed her wrist once so tightly she could not hold a glass the next morning. She remembered all the times she excused him, all the times she blamed herself, all the times she whispered, "He is stressed, that is all." Her voice was barely audible. "I thought I imagined that night. I thought I was exaggerating." "You were surviving," Lucia said softly. "You were alone, and he counted on you staying quiet." Elena curled her fingers into the blanket, grounding herself as old wounds reopened. The room suddenly felt smaller, as if the memories had followed her here. "Why did I stay?" she whispered. Lucia brushed a hand across her cheek. "Because he made you believe you had no choice. But now you have the truth, and the truth is louder than him." Elena leaned her head back, letting the tears fall freely now. They were not tears of weakness. They were the release of years of silent injury. Years of swallowing pain because she thought no one would believe her. Lucia continued gently. "There is more. 2 former employees have already contacted legal authorities. They are willing to testify. They say he manipulated investigations before. He used money to dissolve complaints, but this time he has no control." Elena stared at her hands. They looked different now. Not small, not helpless, not invisible. "People actually saw him," she said. "They saw what he did. They saw me." "They did," Lucia said. "And now the past he buried is coming back. Every lie he used to hide behind is cracking open." Elena closed her eyes. A memory rose up like a ghost. A slammed door. A broken vase. A bruise on her arm. Daniel whispering, "If you tell anyone, they will think you are crazy." She had believed him until last night. A knock interrupted her thoughts. Officer Ramos stepped inside again, carrying a folder thick with documents. His face was serious, but not unkind. "I brought updates," he said. "It is important." Elena straightened. Lucia moved closer. Ramos opened the folder. Since the video went viral, our department has received 6 statements from individuals connected to Mr. Herrera, former employees, witnesses, neighbors. Their accounts establish a pattern of intimidation and possible prior incidents. Elena felt her breath catch. "This strengthens your case significantly," Ramos said. "It shows this was not an isolated event, and it helps us understand the extent of his behavior." Elena's voice shook. "So I was not imagining it." Ramos met her eyes. "No, you were living in fear. That is different." The words hit her like a warm wave. She inhaled slowly, letting her lungs fill completely for what felt like the first time in years. Lucia took her hand. "You see? You were never weak. You were never dramatic. You were never wrong." Elena's voice softened. "I just did not want to believe he could be this person." Ramos closed the folder. "Mrs. Herrera, everything is turning in your favor, but there is something else you need to know. The district judge is considering formal charges. With the pattern emerging, Daniel could face more than one count." Elena absorbed the weight of his words. She was no longer trapped in the dark. The world was finally shining a light on him, and on her. Elena looked at Ramos, then at Lucia, then at the monitor pulsing with her baby's heartbeat. She felt her spine straighten, her voice settle, her fear loosen. "I want to proceed," she said. "Fully, no more silence." Lucia squeezed her hand, pride glowing in her eyes. Officer Ramos nodded. "Then we will help you every step of the way." Elena took another breath, steady and strong. For the first time, she was not surviving her past. She was confronting it, and winning. Daniel Herrera had never felt fear the way he felt it now. Not when he started his business with nothing, not when he faced hostile investors, not even when economic crises threatened to pull the ground from under him. Those moments had been challenges, calculations, games he knew how to win. But this was different. This was a hurricane bearing down on him, and no amount of strategy could change the direction of the wind. At 7:30 in the morning, he stormed into his penthouse office still in the same tuxedo he had worn to the gala. His shirt was wrinkled, his bow tie hung loose. His eyes were red from a night spent drowning in online chaos. He slammed his hands onto his desk. "Call the communications department," he barked at his assistant. "Tell them I want a press release in 30 minutes. Something sympathetic, something that makes me look like the victim." His assistant, Mateo, hesitated. He looked pale, nervous, fragile. "Sir, the communications department will not draft anything without board approval. They said they must follow crisis protocol." Daniel stared at him. "Crisis protocol? This is not a crisis. This is slander. Do you know how many people exaggerate online? I can fix this." Mateo swallowed hard. "Sir, there are 4 videos, clear ones, from different angles, and dozens of eyewitness accounts. The board has already released a statement saying they are deeply disturbed by last night's event." Daniel felt something snap inside him. "They what?" "It is already on every major news outlet," Mateo said quietly. "They are holding an emergency meeting at noon. They want to suspend you until further notice." Daniel grabbed the edge of the desk until his knuckles turned white. "Suspend me? This is my company." Mateo looked down. "It is the board's company. Legally, they can remove you if your actions jeopardize the corporation." Daniel opened his mouth, ready to explode, but his phone vibrated violently on the table. He snatched it up. It was his lawyer. "You saw the videos?" Daniel demanded. "Yes," the lawyer said. His voice was tight with caution. "Daniel, you need to stop talking publicly. Do not post. Do not attempt to contact your wife. There is a protective order." "I know there is a protective order," Daniel snapped. "But Elena is exaggerating. She always exaggerates." There was a long silence on the other end of the phone. Too long. "Daniel," the lawyer finally said, "I watched the video. Everyone watched it. You cannot argue exaggeration. You hit her. You are on camera hitting a pregnant woman. This is not something we can explain away." Daniel's chest tightened. "What about intent? What about emotional distress? What about her provoking me?" "Do not say those things out loud," the lawyer warned. "Especially not to me. Especially not to anyone. Right now, the court is considering formal charges. Your only option is cooperation." Daniel ended the call abruptly. The walls felt like they were shrinking. He paced the room like a trapped animal. He grabbed his laptop, opened a blank post, and started typing a long message addressed to the public. A dramatic apology mixed with excuses and justifications. He read the message aloud under his breath. "I was overwhelmed. I reacted poorly. Elena knows I would never hurt her intentionally. The media is twisting this." He clicked post. 3 minutes later, it was deleted. The communications department had removed it from every platform, citing violation of legal instructions. Daniel screamed and hurled the laptop across the room. He felt utterly alone. And then it got worse. His phone buzzed again. Another alert, another headline. 3 former employees accuse Herrera of past misconduct. Investigation expands. Daniel's heart began to hammer against his ribs. He clicked the article. There they were. Statements, names, allegations of threats, verbal abuse, workplace intimidation. No. This is a coordinated attack, he whispered. Lucia did this. She is orchestrating all of it. He yanked open his desk drawer, searching for anything he could use to fight back. Old contracts, PR strategies, lawyer numbers, none of it mattered. The truth had already spread farther than he could reach. Outside the building, news vans lined the sidewalk. Reporters swarmed the entrance. Cameras pointed upward toward his penthouse balcony. He could hear their voices through the glass whenever a new wave of shouting rose. "Daniel Herrera, do you have anything to say about the accusations? Is it true your wife has filed a statement against you? Will you step down as CEO? Did you attempt to cover up previous complaints?" Each question hit him like a blow. He shut the curtains and backed away, palms sweating. The silence inside the room felt unnatural now, broken only by his shallow breathing. For a moment, he tried to imagine a world where none of this had happened. A world where he still looked untouchable. A world where Elena still looked at him without fear. A world where Lucia was just her sister, not the woman who held the weapon that could destroy him. But that world no longer existed. And in the hospital across Madrid, Elena finally slept for the first time since the nightmare began. Lucia watched over her with steady eyes, knowing the most difficult part was still ahead. Because what Daniel had not realized yet was that this hurricane was no longer just about the slap. It was about everything he had ever done, everything he had ever buried, everything he thought the world would never see. And the storm was only getting stronger. Daniel Herrera had always imagined that if he ever lost his power, it would be because of a business mistake, a miscalculated deal, a competitor rising too fast, maybe even a bad quarter in the stock market. But never this. Never because the world finally saw who he truly was behind the polished veneer. By 9 in the morning, the boardroom of Herrera Group was filled with tension so sharp it could have split the table in half. Every executive sat stiffly in their leather chairs, avoiding Daniel's eyes. The video of the slap played on the massive screen at the front of the room without sound, burning itself into the company's history. Daniel stood before them, pale, sweating, furious. "This has been blown out of proportion. I can still control this. Give me the chance to address the media personally." Javier Ortiz folded his hands. His tone was calm, but the finality behind it silenced the room. "Daniel, you cannot lead us anymore. The brand is collapsing. Investors are pulling out. Regulations are involved. We must protect the company." Daniel slammed his fist onto the table. "I built this company." "Yes," Javier replied, "and you are destroying it." A murmur rippled through the room. Some executives flinched. Others nodded quietly. The board members exchanged glances, a silent vote before the formal one. Javier cleared his throat. "We will take the vote now. The proposal is to suspend Daniel Herrera from all executive duties effective immediately. Following that, we will proceed with a full removal pending legal review." Daniel stared around the table, searching for someone who would defend him. Mateo, his assistant, looked down at his papers. 2 long-time investors avoided his gaze entirely. His CFO closed her eyes, offering nothing. Even those he once considered loyal allies were turning away. One by one, hands rose. The vote was unanimous. Daniel felt the ground tilt beneath him. "This is a mistake. All of you are making a mistake." Javier met his gaze without flinching. "No, we are correcting one." Security approached quietly, offering Daniel the chance to leave with dignity. He shook them off and stormed out of the boardroom, but the sting remained. His empire had not been taken from him violently. It had been taken with calm hands and steady voices that simply refused to let him drag them down with him. Outside the building, reporters swarmed. Microphones stretched toward him like claws. Cameras flashed. Questions fired so quickly he could barely process them. "Daniel, how do you respond to your suspension? Is it true you lost your position permanently? What do you say about the additional accusations? Where is your wife now?" His breath shortened. His vision blurred. He pushed through the crowd, shoving cameras aside as if that could change the truth. But the truth followed him. By the time he reached the parking garage, he was shaking. Not with anger this time, but with a fear he could not swallow. Meanwhile, across the city, Elena sat up slowly in her hospital bed as Lucia stretched beside her. A nurse had just finished checking her vitals, and the baby's heartbeat still echoed softly through the room. "You look better," Lucia said gently. "I feel clearer," Elena replied. "For the first time, I actually feel clear." The television mounted on the wall flicked to breaking news. Elena braced herself, expecting another headline about Daniel's excuses or the company's crisis management attempt. Instead, the announcer spoke with a calm but decisive tone. "Herrera Group has officially suspended CEO Daniel Herrera. The board cites serious misconduct and ongoing investigation." Elena moved a hand to her heart. "They actually did it," Lucia nodded. "They had no choice. The world saw everything. They cannot shield him anymore." Another headline scrolled across the bottom of the screen. "Former employees come forward with new allegations. Investigation broadens." Elena stared at the screen, absorbing the weight of it all. "I never wanted to ruin anyone's life. I only wanted to be safe." Lucia took her hand. "Elena, you did not ruin anything. He did. And now, finally, the world is holding him accountable." Elena leaned back, letting her shoulders drop. The tension that once lived beneath her skin was loosening. She was not healed, not yet. But something in her breath felt different, freer, stronger. A soft knock broke the silence. Officer Ramos stepped inside again with a folder and a cautious smile. "I have updates." Elena sat up straighter. "What is happening now?" Ramos approached the bed. "Given the public nature of the incident, combined with multiple new statements and the medical report, the prosecutor's office is preparing formal charges. You will not need to confront him directly. Your evidence, the videos, and the testimonies are strong enough." Elena felt her chest tighten. "So it is really happening." "Yes," Ramos said. "And there is more. The judge requested to speak with you tomorrow. They want to finalize protections and begin proceedings." Lucia wrapped an arm around her sister. "You are almost at the finish line." Elena inhaled deeply. "What about the baby?" "The baby is strong," Ramos said softly. "And so are you." Elena, let that sink in. For years, she had carried fear like a silent companion, whispering that she was too small to fight, too quiet to matter, too trapped to escape. But now she could feel something rising inside her, something fierce and undeniable. Her life was no longer in Daniel's shadow. The courtroom awaited. Justice awaited. The world awaited her voice. She was ready. The courtroom felt colder than Elena expected. Even with sunlight pouring through the high windows, there was a sharpness in the air, as if the walls themselves understood the gravity of what was about to happen. Elena sat at the plaintiff's table, her hands folded gently over the curve of her belly. Her heart beat steadily, not with fear, but with a determination she had earned through every bruise, every silent night, every moment she wondered if escape was possible. Lucia sat beside her, protective as ever. Officer Ramos stood near the entrance, giving small nods of reassurance. Elena inhaled slowly, letting the sterile scent of the courtroom settle inside her. She was ready. Across the room, Daniel Herrera was led inside by two officers. His once immaculate hair looked unkempt, and his tailored suit hung wrinkled on his shoulders. The confident stride he had shown the world for years was gone. He sat down heavily, avoiding Elena's gaze. For the first time, he looked like a man stripped of his own legend. The judge entered, and everyone rose. When they sat again, the courtroom fell into a tense silence. "This hearing concerns charges of domestic violence, assault, and violation of ethical conduct affecting corporate responsibility," the judge announced. "We will hear statements before determining the next steps." Daniel's lawyer rose first, trying to salvage what little was left. "Your Honor, my client deeply regrets the misunderstanding that occurred. He acted under emotional stress. The incident has been greatly distorted by the media." Lucia let out a short, disbelieving exhale. Elena stayed still. The judge raised an eyebrow. There is video evidence, multiple angles. Are you suggesting the footage is misleading? The lawyer hesitated. Not misleading, Your Honor, simply lacking context. Context? The judge repeated. Your client hit his pregnant wife in a crowded ballroom. What context would excuse that? The lawyer's voice faltered. It was a moment of frustration. The judge sighed sharply. A moment of violence. Daniel stared at the table, jaw clenched. For a second, he looked like he wanted to speak, but nothing came out. It was Elena's turn. The judge nodded to her gently. Mrs. Herrera, you may speak if you wish. This is your space to be heard. Elena felt her throat tighten. She glanced at Lucia, who mouthed two words. You can. Elena rose slowly. The entire courtroom watched her. Cameras were not allowed inside, but the world would still feel the impact of whatever she said next. Her voice began soft but unwavering. For years, I believed that silence kept the peace. I thought if I stayed quiet, things would get better. I told myself he was stressed, that I was sensitive, that what happened behind closed doors was not real if I pretended it did not hurt. Her hands pressed lightly against her stomach. But last night proved something. Silence does not protect anyone. It only protects the person causing the pain. Daniel looked up sharply. His eyes were red. Elena continued, stronger now. When he hit me, I was not just protecting myself, I was protecting my child. And when people saw what he did, I realized something I never allowed myself to believe. I was not alone. I was never alone. She glanced at Lucia, then at Officer Ramos, then at the nurses who had tended to her, then at the judge who listened without judgment. People believed me. The law believed me. And for the first time, I finally believed myself. A long breath escaped her. Her voice softened, but carried far across the room. I am not here to destroy him. I am here to end the cycle. I want safety. I want peace. I want my child to grow up knowing that their mother chose courage instead of fear. The courtroom stayed silent for several long seconds. Then the judge cleared his throat. Mrs. Herrera, thank you for your bravery. He turned to Daniel. Mr. Herrera, based on the overwhelming evidence, including video recordings, medical reports, eyewitness statements, and the pattern of past complaints resurfacing, the court finds sufficient grounds to move forward with formal charges. Daniel's face crumpled, the reality finally breaking through. Elena, he whispered. Please. Elena met his gaze, not with hatred, but with finality. I am done being afraid of you, the judge continued. A restraining order remains in effect. Your access to corporate facilities is suspended pending investigation. Further action will be determined once the prosecutor finalizes charges. Daniel lowered his head into his hands. The faint sound of something breaking inside him echoed through the room. The gavel struck once. The hearing ended. Elena exhaled a long, trembling breath. Lucia wrapped an arm around her shoulders. You did it, she whispered. You fought for yourself. And for the baby. Elena felt warmth fill her chest. We did it, she corrected. They stepped out of the courtroom into the bright hallway. The air felt warmer, softer, cleaner. Outside the courthouse, sunlight washed over everything. Elena paused for a moment and lifted her face toward it. The weight she had carried for years loosened with every breath she took. Lucia stood beside her. What now? Elena placed a hand on her belly as the baby kicked gently. A small smile formed on her lips. Now, she said. We start over. She walked forward, no longer a shadow behind a powerful man, but a woman who had reclaimed herself, and with each step, she carried not the memory of the slap that broke her, but the strength that rose from it.